Okay, we'll make a start. Thanks for attending, everybody. Welcome to the first in our series of webinars for this year. Just some brief housekeeping before we get going. These sessions will be fully recorded and you can find them later on the SDS Employer Hub. That's an area that we'll go into today. All audio and cameras will be switched off for the main presentation. We're using the inbuilt Microsoft Teams Q&A function, which if you put a question into the Q&A function, we'll be able to see it and then we'll be able to respond at the end of the session. Any resources we have, so any links, any contact details or anything you might need or see throughout the session will be shared along with the presentation that will be sent at a later date. And we'll ask for your feedback in a survey towards the end of this session, just so that we can get an understanding of what worked well, what might be better, or what would be useful in webinars moving forward. The session looks very much like an introduction from myself. So I'm Andrew Deary, I'm one of the employer engagement team at SDS, and my colleague Alistair Gillen, who's one of the inward investment managers. We'll run through areas of SDS support for employers. So we'll look specifically at the employer support teams within SDS. We'll look at skills planning from the agency and what that can do for your business. Our colleagues are the relationship account execs who deal with larger businesses. We'll then look at our employer hub, which is kind of a one-stop online service. It ranges from everything from quick how-to guides to equalities details on there. And then we'll look further at skills for growth, which is a full business diagnostic service. To start off, we'll run you through our employer support teams. So we have a number of offers available to support, starting with our employer helpline. And again, these details will be shared so that you don't need to write down the numbers. Our employer helpline is frontline telephone and web support. So if an employer, you don't know where to access SDS or who the best colleague to contact would be, our employer helpline can guide you towards that. It's a single entry point for any assessment or referral that comes into SDS. So if you're a business that wants to get support, whether that's with apprenticeships, skills mapping, a skills for growth, for example, if you contact our employer helpline, they'll be able to guide you to a correct colleague and then we'll pick up from there. Our relationship account executives are mainly dealing with companies that are over 250 headcount. They support with access to apprenticeships, maximising growth opportunities, whether that's from work-based learning, further education, higher education, or industry engagement. Again, those colleagues will be able to signpost you to correct partners, correct parts of the business that might support you better in that. The employer engagement executives, which is where I sit in the business, work primarily with SMEs to think about skills, their people, and what the workforce planning can do to benefit your business. Our main product is skills for growth, which we'll go on to talk about later, which is that full business skills diagnostic. Those are all bespoke. From that process, you receive a bespoke people skills action plan to help support your business. Our job is to help support you in your growth through your people. And then we have our colleagues, Alistair, who's one of our growth and inward investment advisors. They deal with larger companies landing in Scotland and the investment area in Scotland. So linking them to education pipelines, linking them to apprenticeship pipelines that might benefit when the companies land in Scotland. I'll pass on to Alistair.
Afternoon, folks. So we thought there's obviously quite a mix of different employers here, some partners on as well, who no doubt know quite a bit of this, but for the employers, I think it's always important, rather before we go on and say here's what all the offer is, I suppose it's just understanding what the role of SDS is when it comes to supporting employers and where it fits into the overall skills landscape. So part of our role, and I'll start off with the employer side of it on the left-hand side of the screen, is engaging with businesses and understanding not just what their challenges are right now, but what their future challenges are going to be, what their demands and needs are when it comes to their people and skills. And through gathering that demand and that evidence, what we'll look to do is within Skills Development Scotland is gather that data and working with partners across the education system and skills landscape is produce plans, regional and sectoral skills investment plans, which will capture what those requirements are and help to shape policy, help to shape local decision making when it comes to looking to ensure that we've got the right response within the education system, whether that be coming through the schools or within our partners in the colleges and the universities, that the right provision is there that will in turn then meet the needs of industry, in turn obviously supporting the Scottish economy as we go forward. But also gathering that information from employers is vitally important to make sure we're feeding that into the careers side of Skills Development Scotland and the careers side of skills planning. Making sure that the talent that's coming through the education system and just the public in general is aware of what the growth opportunities are, what the opportunities in terms of their career will look like, what the skills that employers are looking for both now and in the future. And that's really important for us ensuring that the influencers such as teachers, such as careers advisors, such as staff within colleges and universities, they are aware of what those opportunities are, and they can of course in turn feed that information into the talent that's coming through our education system. And the idea being that as part of that overall cycle, then what we're producing coming out of education is then meeting the needs, and the provision is there to support those individuals to then go into the jobs that Scotland's industry requires. So taking it back to where Andrew was introducing the various different teams and what they do, and again you'll hopefully recognise where your business sits within the different areas of support. Starting off with the larger companies, 250 headcount and above, we have a team of relationship account executives within SDS across the country, and I suppose the role of all the employer-facing teams is similar. It's just usually divided up by the kind of size of business, the type of business. But the relationship account executives, their role was engaging with larger businesses and helping them to access opportunities, access the right level of skill support and skills network and provision in order to help whether it be sustain or grow their business and the employees they have within their business. So that can cover various different elements. It can be around apprenticeships. Obviously, apprenticeships is something Skills Development Scotland have managed for several years, and it can be looking at where, not just a case of signposting a business to where a delivery partner such as a college would be able to support them, but actually sitting down with a business and mapping what their needs are and how that could potentially align to different apprenticeship frameworks. Always give the example of working with a whisky distillery where traditionally they'd always just taken on apprentices within their bottling facility, but they were struggling to attract and retain staff elsewhere in the business. And looking at apprenticeships, we started then looking at the succession planning of the business and looking at where they were getting the next batch of people for their warehousing, next batch of people for their admin staff, their procurement, all that supply chain element of it. So that kind of mapping across to, well, is there an apprenticeship framework that could potentially support that succession planning is a big part of the role of a relationship account executive. That obviously links itself into that attraction and retention of talent, and whether that's new people coming into the business or indeed existing members of staff, and looking at how not just their apprenticeships but other elements of skill support, how we can help develop those staff and retain them at a time when the labour market is obviously quite tight. What are you doing that's a bit different, or what can you do to ensure that you're hanging on to the staff that you want, and how are you developing them? And then looking to provide opportunities for people to come through at the back in terms of that emerging talent as part of your kind of succession planning model. So again, the relationship account execs, or RAEs as I should refer to them, can support with that. Navigating the full skills system, I'm quite sure at times people say that knowing who to speak to and where the best support is can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. So again, that's something that the RAISE will support with, ensuring that you're speaking to the right people at the right time. So that's working with our colleagues in developing young workforce, it's working with the colleges and universities with their business development teams, the whole range of network there, all pulling together to make sure that they're supporting the needs of industry. Kind of mentioned earlier on, but that skills planning model, sitting down with businesses and looking at their strategy, looking at their goals in that short, medium and long term, and again making sure that they are supporting them in the right way on that. And just like ourselves in this team, the RAISE also deliver webinars on a series of different themes and subject matters, again responding to what industry is telling us and where we're picking up that some support or some signposting is required. Moving on to our own team that myself and Andrew sit within, the skills growth and inward investment team. Three main areas with that: inward investment, skills for growth, and employer hub. Not going to speak too much about inward investment. Just, that's the area I'm in. Work primarily with Scottish Enterprise / Scottish Development International. That's their international arm, if you like. Looking at attracting businesses from all around the world to Scotland. So part of our role within SDS is ensuring that we're articulating the full range of support from both ourselves and partners across the country that is responsive to the needs of investors. Being able to articulate that we have a skills system that is of high quality and is responsive to the needs of investors. As technology evolves, that we have a skills system that will evolve with it and make sure that we're meeting that demand. So we'll work, myself and my colleagues, we'll work with potential investors coming into Scotland to essentially sell Scotland as an entity, somewhere they would be looking to invest, get access to the right talent that we've got, and ensuring that we're then linking them into the various delivery partners such as colleges and universities and private provision, and also linking in with the schools for that kind of development of talent coming through. I'm not going to steal Andrew's thunder. He'll go more into the Skills for Growth and Employer Hub, but Skills for Growth is a diagnostic service for primarily small to medium enterprises, so 250 and below. However, we have got that flexibility to deliver Skills for Growth for larger companies where appropriate. And again, it's looking to support businesses to achieve their growth ambitions through their people, through their most valuable asset, their people, and the skills that their people have. But Andrew will go on to talk a bit more about that. And finally, the Employer Hub, which is our online resource. A lot of resources went into the Employer Hub over the last couple of years to ensure that we're helping businesses to, I suppose, help themselves by having a responsive online presence with a range of different tools that can help businesses support their current staff, but also plan for the future. And you're seeing this kind of ongoing theme that it is about how we can support businesses in the here and now, but how we are helping them to ready themselves with what they're requiring over the years ahead. None of this happens overnight. As you'll know, as employers, there's a fair degree of planning required, and the same's true for when we're linking in with skills provision, that ensuring we've got the capacity and we're able to be responsive requires a fair bit of planning beforehand. And part of producing the Employer Hub and the tools within it is to help businesses help themselves and linking into the support that's available to them. Andrew.
So we'll go on to talk a wee bit more about the Employer Hub. Alistair's given a really helpful introduction to that. The Employer Hub is really a service, a self-serve service for business. The reason the Employer Hub was created was that some businesses might not have time or have the engagement with SDS to come through and deal with one of us individually. So they might want to do things on their own and take their own path. So they can do that through creating a skills action plan on our skills tool. Effectively, what this will do is you'll complete a questionnaire about the business, and that will help you to then define your future skills needs. So that could be in areas such as there are marketing deficiencies in the business. You've never engaged in apprenticeships, or you might be an engineering business who's looking to upskill operators to the next level. What support do you need for that, and where can you achieve that support if it's available? It will then assess the skills in business, so it will help you to look at what skills do you already have in the business. Now, this is all self-assessment, so what I would say is this might be a point where the business thinks they have these skills or thinks they're missing those skills, but it might not have identified those talents within the business. Now, this is all your input to this. Through these three areas, you'll then receive advice and guidance. So what you'll get is a handy hints tips sheet that gives you kind of access to partners, where's best to go for training resources, what it might look like in terms of that wider support. There will also be these webinars on demand. So we've done a previous run of webinars around succession planning, talent attraction, general support in business, and all of those webinars are stored on our Employer Hub. The current run of webinars that we're about to complete will also go onto the Employer Hub, allowing you to access them at your leisure, whether that's for some lunchtime learning or some late night listening, however you prefer to. There is more in-depth support available through our SDS employer facing teams, which we'll go on to talk about. You can decide at the point of Employer Hub whether the self-serve tool isn't enough for you. And what we would then say is you can put a referral form in through the Employer Hub. That will then come straight to our employer teams, whether you're a larger business that will come to our relationship account executives, or whether you're a smaller business looking support, it will come through to our employer engagement team. That way, if you've decided you've hit a wall with your own self-assessment, we can then come and talk about further opportunities that are available to you as a business. This is the landing page of the Employer Hub to give you a taste of what it looks like, to give you a taste of areas in there. So along the headline there, we've got manager workforce, talent attraction, webinars, funding and training, which is always a popular area for business to look at. We would ask that if you sign up to the Employer Hub, you'll get more responsive and better access to some of the tools on there. It means you can save some of the tools instead of having to go in and start again. It's a really useful, quick hit for employers to go in and do their own support if they don't have desire or time to engage fully with one of the colleagues that might be able to guide you. Skills for growth is an area of the business that I sit in. So around the nation, there are 7 equivalents of me, and our job is to support primarily small and medium enterprises to support their growth through, as Alistair says, your best asset, your people. The way that's done, a referral will come into us, whether it's through a partner, the employer escalations, or through the Employer Hub, or through contact at the end of this webinar. We'll share contact details. We'll sit with you and have an initial meeting to discuss what's the business's ambition, what, as a business leader, what keeps you up at night, and that's in a business sense, of course, but we will ask those challenging questions around what is the next step for the business. From that point, if you decide skills for growth is right for you, we'll come into the business and speak directly to your staff. We'll do this in small sessions. It can be one-to-one, it can be small group sessions. These conversations will all be anonymous. So when we get to report stage, no individual is then singled out to say, person X said this about the business. We are very much about getting your staff's feedback anonymously so that we've got raw data for you to learn about what works well in the business, what areas are challenging in the business from the front lines effectively. From that point, you'll get a detailed people skills action plan, or a PSAP as we would call it. This will have recommendations on how to meet your growth ambition. So to use an example of that, if at the initial meeting, we'll go to marketing as an example, you say marketing is a massive issue for the business. If we then come into the team and discuss marketing as an area of growth, and somebody in the team identified that they have a real passion in marketing, for example, but have never had training or have never been able to utilise those talents, one of the recommendations might be, why don't we think about using that member of staff for your marketing and using an apprenticeship to upskill them in that. There's a number of apprenticeships, including creative and digital media, that might be able to do that. If at the other stage there is not any support or there's not anybody in the business that is keen to do it or has the ability to do it, we can then look at further support around recruitment or external training that might be available. If it is the recruitment piece, what we would then look to do is engage with our careers team or developing the young workforce to engage with a workforce that's out there to see if there's any possible candidates that might fit into your business. That's an example of what you would do as the business to prioritise what's most important. What should be said is, when you get your people skills action plan, it's up to you as the business what's important, what you want to work on first, or if there's areas where you think, actually, that's a quick win, we would like to achieve that now, you'll have the full support of SDS and our range of partners that are available. We'll support you in doing that by pointing you towards partners, funding, training, if any of that's available. We like to see ourselves as masters of nothing and skilled in every area. We would always endeavour to bring in experts in each topic to support you as best we can, whether that's partners from Business Gateway, Scottish Enterprise, further education, or any of the other sectors that we're aware of. We'll then keep in touch with you as an account manager. So you're stuck with us for as long as you want us, effectively, and we'll do all we can to support you as and when the needs of the business grow. So if in 6 months' time you want to look at a different area of the PSAP, then we can then look at that area and see what support's available. Our job is to do a lot of the background work while you go on with the day-to-day. We do surveys after every Skills for Growth, and at this point, 99% of businesses have said that they would seek further support from Skills Development Scotland. Again, these are more areas of depth in terms of what we can support with Skills for Growth, and these are some of the feedbacks we've had from our surveys that we do following a Skills for Growth. Increased performance, this is down to people using their skills effectively or learning new skills that will effectively work in their job. It's really vital that your team are using their skills to the best of their ability, particularly if you're a small business, there might be less hands on deck. So it's always an opportunity to use people in a wider and better sense. Builds confidence within the business. What we find is using Skills for Growth gives employees a platform to say, this is what we think is really good about the business and this is what we think works really well. And it's identifying areas that they know they're good at or areas that they might struggle with, and how as a business can we support them. Again, we've spoke about the attracting the right people element of it, but it's about recruiting for business for skills that you might not have in the business, or recruiting for skills that you know you'll need further down the line. And that's a big part of succession planning, which there's a previous webinar on available on the Employer Hub. There's elements in here of managing change. So we can look at, if you've went through the change curve, at what stage are you at, or are you trying to introduce new innovative workplace practices that the team just aren't at grips with yet. We'll be able to gather that anonymous feedback for you and feedback what might work better or any change or any development that would be useful for you. And again, support employees. It gives staff an opportunity to be listened to. It gives them an opportunity to develop. Well, you might already do one-to-ones, appraisals, you might give staff their chance to voice. It's always really refreshing for staff when we work with them to have an external come in, because it almost feels like they're freed up to say, this is how we really feel, and they're not in fear of what a line manager or a director might say, well, actually, this is what we're trying to do. They've got an open platform to do that, and they don't need to wait for that specific date. Below are a few of the companies we've worked with, and again, you can find case studies of companies we've worked with on our Employer Hub. This is the team that's available for you to contact. Again, you don't frantically need to scribble names, emails, or phone numbers. What we'll do following the session is send all these details out. Each one of us are responsible for regions in Scotland. That allows us to be more intricate with the support that we know is available. And then if you are a larger organisation that's got multiple venues, we can link together as colleagues, whether if you've got an organisation that works in Edinburgh, Stirling and Aberdeen, for example, 3 of the team would be able to do individual diagnostics in each area. So like Alistair said, as much as Skills for Growth is focused on smaller or medium enterprises, we have done and continue to work with larger employers alongside our relationship account executive colleagues to make sure that service is available for them. We're currently working with a large hotel chain that's looking at multiple sites across the country, and we as a team are using our expertise and our knowledge of the areas to do those individual diagnostics, but pull together one large report that supports the employer. Alistair, I'll pass back to you.
Thanks, Andrew. A lot of the content you've heard so far is that kind of one-to-one business support, whether it's online using Employer Hub, or obviously you've got people like myself and Andrew or any of the relationship account executives coming in and speaking to you and helping to link you in with schools and helping to map out various areas of support. I suppose sitting behind all of that and data and information that's available to you as a business on our corporate site, skillsdevelopmentscotland.co.uk. I mentioned it earlier on as part of that skills planning cycle that a big part of what we do is around skills planning and producing regional and sectoral skills assessments, which give in-depth analysis of where we are within a certain sector, say it was manufacturing, say it was food and drink, whatever it may be, in terms of where we are in terms of the makeup of that sector and its people and skills, the demographics of that sector, where we are in certain regions, where the pinch points are, where the growth opportunities are projected to be coming through. All that type of information is compiled and published on our website, and that's done on a regular basis, along with access to what's called a data matrix, where again you can go in and using the tool there you're able to pull off a whole host of different information around Scotland, the makeup of Scotland's industry and people and skills, and where talent is coming from. So all the kind of heavy data that we're using to inform the decision making is all there, and it is available on Skills Development Scotland.co.uk, and again it's something that you can contact any one of us on if it's something you're looking at in terms of decision making within your business as you're looking to move forward. And we produce these documents such as the skills assessments and skills investment plans, and helping to shape where we're going as a country with our skills. And we've got a couple of examples there, but it's just to give you an idea of the type of resources that we use when we're working with businesses, the likes of Lightcast, for talking sake. I'll use that when working with businesses to help to give them an idea of average salaries for say a project manager or a data analyst or whatever within a certain region. Then we're able to pull information using these tools such as FDI Benchmark or Lightcast or whatever it may be that we've got licenses for, to help shape that understanding and help support businesses in their decision making.
This final slide just gives an overview of some of the helpful resources that are available through SDS and colleagues. Again, the employer hubs there, we've ran through that. Apprenticeship.scot is your one-stop shop for everything apprenticeships. That's whether you want to take on an apprentice, you have somebody on hand who you don't know what framework they would fit into. That apprenticeship.scot has every information on every framework available, whether it's foundation, modern or graduate apprenticeship. It's got helpful terms and conditions and question and answers that will lead you down a path to answer anything you need. Again, if there's any challenges in that area or you want to talk more, there is an option there to go to our employer helpline, which will then be directed to a member of staff to be able to support you better. Find Business Support is available. It gives you options in terms of the wider support network in Scotland. And the Fair Work Employer Support Tool is to gauge kind of fair work within the business. So there are a number of helpful resources there that we'll send out, again, more information on as and when required. In terms of last steps, we'll just quickly look at Q&As. If there is any, nothing's come in. So again, thank you very much for your time. If there's any Q&As, please feel free to file them in. If not, all of this information will be sent out further, and we thank you for coming along to our first in the series of webinars.